What was the biggest risk you have taken?
2009, the world was economically on fire. Layoffs weekly at my job. Toddler and one on the way. Decided to double down everything I owned to buy a house in an area I could not afford under normal circumstances. On the way to the closing, I was beep diamonds. Before we entered the closing, I looked to my wife and said, if I lose my job, we lose everything. House, cars, retirement, all of it. But if we make it, we will do very well. I just sold that house last week. While it was emotional to let it go, we raised 3 kids, made a lot of friends and memories, and was able to make enough profit to wipe out her student loans.
Getting my friends to all watch Human Centipede together so I could spend more time with this guy I was interested in. He sat next to me. We touched legs as the woman was screaming into the other guy's butt cheeks. I lost my virginity the next week.
Sold my car, packed my things, got on a train, and moved halfway across the country to be with a woman I'd been with in person less than 20 days total. 12 years later, married with a kid. Craziest, stupidest, best decision I've ever made.
Gave a 5-minute speech on how erectile dysfunction will cause the apocalypse to 2 middle-aged women in an academic speech competition.
Felt very nervous before a presentation in university, and thought I was going to do quite poorly on it as I hadn't prepared very well for it. I just thought, beep it, and boldly went up to the lecturer to ask if I could do my presentation first. It paid off and went much better than expected, and I got one of the highest marks in the class on the assignment.
When I was 5 and just starting to swim, I decided that the best way to learn was to jump right in. Off the high dive. Not many people can say that their courage peaked at 5.
Threatening my employer with legal action. Edit, I'd just like to say that I don't recommend doing this unless you have an actual reason and a strong case. My, now ex-employer threatened to sack me if I didn't came back to work immediately. I was on sick leave with severe depression and anxiety shortly after completing treatment for a rare form of breast cancer at 34. They beep up.
6 years ago I had a massive heart attack. The ambulance came and it was clear what was happening. They said there was a hospital close by that could try and stabilize me, and there was another hospital 30 minutes away that had a cardiac unit that could do whatever was needed. The risk was that if I went to the one close by, they may not be able to do anything. I told them to take me to the one 30 minutes away, even though they indicated there was a chance dying while en route. I made it there, and while in the operating room I coded for 4.5 minutes. End up it was a widow-maker heart attack. I woke up 3 days later on a ventilator but made it through it. If I had chosen the local hospital I never would have made it.
I moved from the Gold Coast, Australia, to Newcastle almost immediately after I graduated high school. I knew no one there except for the deadbeat now ex I was moving with. Best decision I have ever made. Ex and I broke up. I found my passion working in a coffee roastery, and I met my now husband on a bus.
I got accepted to a good university the same day my band was offered a recording contract. There was no way I could do both, so I chose the contract. I look back on those years I spent traveling and playing music for a living as some of the best memories I've ever had, and I did eventually end up with an associate's degree from a local college, but I'll always wonder what could have been different.
Having a poo while there are only a few squares of toilet roll left. You never know when you're going to get an extra sloppy one.
Followed a sketchy homeless man into a dark alley in San Francisco at 2 a.m. I was 15, alone, armed with nothing but a paperback copy of The Light Fantastic. My teachers were asleep, no one knew I'd left our motel, and it was my first time in a city bigger than Copenhagen. I should, by all accounts, be dead. Ended up saving his friend's life by calling 911 and applying what basic first aid I'd been taught.
Every time I've confessed my love to a crush. Sometimes it worked out, sometimes not. The times when it did was absolutely worth the times when it didn't.
Quit my job of 10 years, rented out my fully furnished house to strangers, and then proceeded to backpack around South America for 6 months. I was half convinced I was just going to come back to an empty house. Returned and everything was in place, even the booze we had left behind. I made a couple of bucks renting the place out, and 3 months later got a job making 10% more than the one I left. When I say fully, I mean fully. Not just the furniture, but the dishes, utensils, towels, TVs, etc. Basically removed the laptop, jewelry, guns, and clothing and left everything else.
I had just turned 20 and was laying in bed with my girlfriend of 4 months who had just turned 19 when I got the bright idea to ask her to marry me. Almost 23 years later, and she's taking a nap while I lay next to her playing on my phone. I definitely made the right call that night.
I bought a house without looking at it. I don't regret it, but wouldn't do it again.
Turning down $1 million in cash for my business because I think I can get more for it in the future.
I left my last job due to some health issues. I was expected to return to the same kind of work in December. I refused when I found out they were trying to get me to work in the same building that caused my illness. I knew it was a risk that I could lose the job and benefits. But my health is way more important than working a crummy desk job. It's not just mental health issues, it's physical ailments too. I'm currently on leave without pay while I figure out my next steps. It's scary. I have some medical benefits coming in from the feds, but that will run out eventually. But I have faith things will work out for the best. Life is too short to stay at a job for benefits and a pension. Especially when the toxic and hostile workplace culture causes you serious illnesses.
Swam with a great white, no cage.
Bought No Man's Sky on launch day.
I kissed my crush at a Christmas party as part of a magic trick because we were both too scared to tell each other we liked each other. We'd been good friends for a couple years, but neither wanted to ruin the friendship by shooting our shots. It worked. He married me 2 years later.
I broke into Tiffany's at midnight. Did I go for the vault? No, I went for the chandelier. It's priceless. As was taking it down, a woman catches me. She tells me to stop. It's her father's business. She's Tiffany. I say no. We make love all night. In the morning the cops come and I escape in one of their uniforms. I tell her to meet me in Mexico, but I go to Canada. I don't trust her. Besides, I like the cold. 30 years later, I get a postcard. I have a son and he's the chief of police. This is where the story gets interesting. I tell Tiffany to meet me in Paris, by the Trocadero. She's been waiting for me all these years. She's never taken another lover. I don't care, I don't show up. I go to Berlin. That's where I stashed the chandelier.
Quitting my job without another one lined up. I've actually done it twice. Each time it led me to something better or set me on a path to something better. Right now I'm in a pretty good job I enjoy that is a 5-minute walk from home. I'm also possibly going to be able to get a promotion that will either help me pay off the mortgage 10 years early or only work 3 days a week.
I ate at a Burger King once.
Fooling around with a coworker in the office filing room. In mailroom. In boardroom. In elevator. In lunchroom.
The 3 separate occasions I chased a suspect into the woods at night, by myself.
Growing weed when one of the roommates called the cops on our roommate landlord for taking his prescribed medication. So far so good. 4 out of the 5 people living here are also invested in getting free weed, so he's been made very aware that if he goes anywhere near the locked room that bad things will happen. He has no idea what in there, but I'm sure he suspects something, and the cops aren't listening to him anymore since the last time he called it was just someone taking completely legal life-saving medication prescribed by a doctor. He's only gonna be here for another month because the guy who owns the house wasn't too happy about getting his medication stolen and returned by the cops. He is pretty happy about free weed though.
Abruptly quit my job/career and dropped my entire life in Germany to come back to the States and be with my ex. Right before COVID. Things didn't work out. Such is life.
Moved to London in November of 2019 to start a tattooing apprenticeship. Still going but taking forever due to COVID.
Leaving my abusive relationship.
Getting married.
May your day be filled with joy and happiness. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more quality content every day.